Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to No Question About That. Today with Adam. How's it going, Adam?
I'm excited. It's an exciting weekend. It's not the dreaded derby to me. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you checked down Trump's list for tariffs. You saw Australia on there and you were like, yes, get in.
It's nice to feel included. I think we sometimes try to imitate countries like the one you live in. Yeah, it's nice to be included. I know they had the island that is included. I don't know if you saw this, but Trump's list of islands included the one that is full of penguins only. Huh. So everyone is getting a shot here. So good times.
Equal opportunities tariffing. Nice. Okay, today we're going to talk about United versus City and try and put it in some wider context, I think, where the clubs are at, what they need. So United's crisis is we are 13th in the league, haven't won the league for 10 years. Are running out of money extremely fast. There are job cuts and ticket price rises and everyone's very unhappy. City's crisis is that they didn't squad plan very well, which is unusual for them. And so a mini injury crisis has hit them really hard and they could get fined, dock points, relegated, sent into the fucking sun, as should be the case when the Premier League Commission finally gives us a verdict, which could be imminent. So, yeah, that's the wider context. So what are your thoughts on where the clubs are at?
Dawned on me when you were saying that. I don't think we had the first derby. I don't think City were in the state they're in now in the first derby of the season. I don't think we've had a derby where both clubs have been in such crises of their own. They're completely different. But I think there's always been a one club prevailing over the other on the pitch in how they're performing. And right now, both clubs are in their own versions of hell. United are at the point where, you and I spoke about this before we started. United are at the point where results and performances must go, the level of performance must go hand in hand now. We won't be taking honourable losses, will no longer be accepted. We saw that post-Forest and the reaction to that. And it's more than fair, considering the disaster of the season. Then in City have the charges lingering over their head. We're in the end game of that, I hope. I hope April is the month where we finally learn their fate and what their immediate future looks like. Their squad is not what it was. And I think the style of the Premier League is moving against the way they like to play. And I think it's exposing an aging squad and a squad that lacks the sort of physicality to compete with the chivalrosity of other teams and how they're choosing to play now, that really direct style.
Yeah.
And so we've never had a derby where both teams are under this kind of pressure at the same time. So I think it makes it really exciting because the fallout will be fantastic.
Well, there were a few in the 80s when we were both dreadful, but the pressure was slightly different, I guess. Yeah, City, let's talk about City on the pitch first a little bit. I just thought they've made some squad planning mistakes, really, and that's one of the things that's contributed. Obviously, Rodri, Stones, a few other key players have spent significant amounts of time injured this season. It's impacted the way they play, but it's like they didn't plan for it. They definitely should have planned for Kevin De Bruyne. They don't have an alternative to Kevin De Bruyne. It was Alvarez, who's gone to Atletico Madrid. They let him go for a lot of money without bringing someone else in, really. Some pretty poor planning there. There was never anybody in the City squad that could cover for Rodri, and we've seen that. They've gone through a whole bunch of players now, including a bunch of kids. None of it's worked. Well, I think that's the essential problem. The bit about the style is interesting because, it is certainly contributing at their weakest moment to teams being able to play against them in the most effective manner, right? So the Premier League has gone to something that looks a bit more like Bundesliga, but steroids, right? More mid-block teams, more counter-pressing, more transitional football. but it's just more aggressive than the Bundesliga and better quality players and more physical players. We went through the period of going from direct football to something that looked like it was copying City, if not exactly that, to being something a bit different now. I think with a greater variety of styles as well, which is interesting. But the thing that Pep keeps talking about, which he's dead right on, and he probably should just shut the fuck up, but is that they cannot cope with transitional football. They just don't know how to do it. They haven't changed their way of playing at all. No,
it's interesting. And it makes you wonder, in terms of squad building, is it floor of squad building? Is it floor of system, or is it both? And it's not something we're used to with them. It's this, they just can't handle this absorbing other team styles, attacks, and then exploding back on them with such sheer speed. And they can't handle it. Cannot handle it. Never seen a City team defend this badly. And I think that ball possession and domination of the ball has helped them reduce that in previous times. It just doesn't hold up now.
Yeah.
I think that clubs have certainly learnt that imitation of Pep's style, whatever you want to call it, tiki-taka, whatever it is now, it doesn't work unless you have the very best players. We've seen that because it's falling apart with just 1, 2, and 3 injuries. Those key players in the system doesn't hold up so well anymore. And I think that other teams have tried. We've seen teams who have got promoted, for example, who have played that same style in the Championship completely fail in the Premier League because they don't have the same quality of player. So teams have had to find another way to play. And we've got smarter teams. We've got way better coaching than we've ever had across the Premier League. And I will argue constantly about the best coaches. It's great social media content every time Pep fails to point out how far he is behind the very best we've ever seen. But right now we're seeing City fail to adapt. And for a long time, teams have had to adapt to City. We're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
They struggled with the heavy metal football that Liverpool played. I don't know whether teams have learnt from that and done it in their own way. But the implementation of more continental football in England has been really interesting. It's really exciting if you're a neutral observer. It's pretty terrifying if you're a team that's struggling in PSR and trying to compete when you're 13th in the league, because you're already falling behind those clubs that have been catching up.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Come to the United's structural problems in a second. City on the pitch. Nuno said something interesting. Nuno Espirito Santo said something interesting after the United Forest game. He said, it doesn't make any sense to me that you talk about possession and say possession is controlling the game, right? And that's always been true. Mourinho knew this at his height. Like, what did they beat Barcelona on? 20% possessions, less than, I think, Inter Barcelona 2010. I think it was sub 20% possession.
Yeah, I think it was 83-17 or something like that.
Amazing, right? So that was the extreme end. Espirito Santo's always been there, right? His teams have always played like that. I think Forest have done very well. They've maximised their chances of doing well this season by playing in that very specific system and having a lot of athletes who are able to exploit the transitions extremely well. And it kind of plays into what we're thinking about City here, right? Like, there is more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to control the game. And in controlling the game against City often means you don't have the ball, right? You want to control the bits at which they can hurt you, which is the overloads in wide areas, the cutback for the third man run, and the goal, classic City goal, which with some irony is the kind of goal we kind of hope that Amram's team will, with a different system, will start to provide for United. So it's interesting. I don't know, and maybe you have a thought on this. I don't know if United are particularly well set up tactically to hurt City in quite the same way that some other teams have. They've got some quick players, but they're not efficient finishing side at all, as we saw against Forest.
No, the one thing that they can exploit, they've been good with, is when teams do play on the front foot against them, it does open more space. They struggle against the mid blocks because I think they just can't break teams down.
Yeah.
So when you give them a bit more space, but that said, we don't have the likes of Ahmad to exploit that in the same way they did at the Etihad. What is interesting about what you said and the possession being 9/10 of the law thing that we've sort of known about football for a really long time and that managers have slowly started to figure out, well, that's not true at all, is that, and you said there's many ways to skin a cat, is that exciting football comes in many forms. I know the Forest fans, they certainly are happy about it. Like, they're not unhappy with a pragmatic style. that finds its own excitement in just like, look at Anthony Elanga's goal, just a 6 or 7 seconds burst of transition. Horrific defending. And it was interesting that the best thing to do in that situation is something that City have done really well for years, which is tactical fouling. As soon as a player breaks into space, you cop the yellow card, you bring them to ground, and you reset your defence. And that's why City's defence was so strong, because they were always in front of the ball. Now that they're not able to do that, they're just getting exploited time and again. So I'm sort of curious. I know that at the Etihad, United sort of dropped their principles in terms of how Amorim wanted to play. They played a much different style. It's like how he said, you and I have talked about this before, when Sporting beat City 4-1, Amorim said after the game, can't always win that way. Like, that was a really efficient, ruthless performance. They didn't dominate the ball or anything. It wasn't actually classic Sporting either. So I think it also probably lends itself to the fact that I think Amorim gets called this tactically rigid manager, but he's actually quite flexible. He's quite dogmatic when he needs to be. So, yeah, I think the sort of football they play lends itself to sort of being at United's advantage, but we've seen teams that do like to attack, like a Tottenham, do United in. So it can go both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on Amorim. I think he's actually quite flexible. He's flexible within a fairly rigid framework, which is your 3-4-3. He rejects that as a conversation, as we've discussed before. He thinks it's about principles, but within that framework, there's a lot of flexibility, but he's trying to get players to do certain things in certain parts of the pitch. A player who took a lot of criticism on board after the Forest defeat was Alejandro Garnacho. I think you were leading the charge there. No, I'm kidding.
From a level-headed point of view.
Yeah, he deserved criticism because every time he got the ball, he tried to cut inside and shoot. And like, if you're a one-trick pony, like, at least change it up sometimes. And he just didn't do it well either. But he said afterwards he needs to improve his finishing, his passing, his running, and his defending. And fortunately, he said, and he's improving on all of those things. But this is about the principles. Like, this is about the things that Amorim says you absolutely have to do for me. And within that, there's room for different types of players, which is why I've always sought this kind of notion that, well, there's 7 players who definitely can't play in a 3-4-3, or we've never played 3-4-3 at United before, so we've got to ship all these players out, was kind of nonsense. Like, I think he'll be looking for players who can stick to his principles and can perform at a high level within this formation, and he'll be trying to work out what the combinations are that makes most sense for him. And after 6 months of this, he's got a pretty good idea, I think, of what works and what doesn't. And then it'll be on to the club in the summer to try and solve some of those problems for him.
Yeah, well, I'll jump on to Garnacho in a second, but my thing with the system has always been, don't worry about the formation. Formation is just so you can display it on something before the game. Everyone has their positions, obviously, but it's more about your roles and what your role is designed to execute, your role within that system, and whether you can do it. So it just means, a fullback is more likely to play right centre back because of the less demanding physical nature and attacking nature of the wing back role. The physical demands means Luke Shaw is no longer a fullback; he's a left centre back. Things like that, things we've discussed previously. With Alejandro Garnacho, I think you talk about the one-trick pony. That, to me, and I talked to you about this before we started, is that to me looks like a player who's tired, who's played an extraordinary amount of football in the last year and a half in particular, with very little rest, that has too much put on him at 20 years old. Like, there is a incredible there, and especially under Eric Ten Hag, there was incredible reliance on him. When he was playing on that right side, he was playing, I can't remember how many games he started in a row. It was dozens.
Yeah.
So to me, that's one aspect of it. I don't think he's a glove fit for how the team wants to play, but he's also a young, moldable player. And he's shown this season that he can adapt to coaching instruction. It's that he's regressing a little bit in that. So what I was saying post-game, and I think we have to find the balance, and I'm someone who harps on this constantly, is find the balance between criticism and what borderlines to abuse, particularly with young players, and supporting them through their struggles, particularly someone like Patrick Dorgu as well. He's going to have bad games because he's a raw player still. And he's still figuring out his body and what he's really good at. So he really struggled in that game. But that doesn't excuse the fact that Alejandro Garnacho constantly ignores him. It's like he's invisible. It's like he can't see the left side when he's cutting inside. He completely ignores what's happening in the left channel. And to me, it's just, he was just doing the same thing over and over, that cut inside or that same dribble move. And the defenders were just anticipating it every single time. Never once tried to run outside or anything like that. And that's why I think he better suits the right. I think it's simpler. The demands of him, he can do the same things over and over because it creates more attacking width, especially with less of a presence at right wing back in the team. I think actually makes more sense for him to stay out there right now.
At Marcus Rashford's best were times when he was willing to go on the outside as well. Come inside and shoot. That's where he scored the 30 goals in that season. But also go on the outside so the defender can't anticipate, can't close off one channel. And it makes him second guess. And Alejandro needs to be able to do that if he's going to play wide. He also needs to learn when to play the right pass, when not to, when to retain possession, when to play the killer ball, when to go shoot. And it was just particularly frustrating that he kept doing the same thing and it didn't work. Of course, like if he had the finishing quality, which he has occasionally, but not consistently, right? If he's going to cut inside and stick one in the top corner, no one's going to complain. Like maybe the coach will, but fans won't. So this is, but look, he's young players, played too much football for his age, honestly, in a bad team that's been regressing under, 3 coaches now? Maybe more, I'm not sure. At least 3 permanent coaches. And that is not a good environment for a young player to learn at all.
Well, look what's happened. I think Højlund and Garnacho are the perfect examples of what happens to young players in this team when too much is demanded of them. They should be in secondary roles, but they're being asked to be primary roles because of the lack of options. And I think one thing, what you were saying about Rashford and willing to go outside, that's showing a level of sacrifice that you're not putting what you want to do first. That opens up other options for people to run through the middle for those cutbacks. When you're cutting inside, all of a sudden, that's why one of the reasons that Højlund doesn't get as much of the ball funneled through to him, because the players generally that have played outside of him, they want to cut inside and shoot. They don't want to cut inside and pass. So Højlund's got problems of his own, obviously, but everyone needs to chill. Everyone needs to chill. Keep it.
Yeah.
Get to the summer.
Unfortunately, we're going to have a couple of years of this. It's not just get to the summer because, Amorim went on a kind of rambly discussion thing where he was saying, I can't make them challenge next year. I can't say we're going to challenge next year. He was asked about 2028 and whether United could win the Premier League by then. I can't say we'll do it in 2 years. We're going to have some pain. And it wasn't the cleanest of answers, but I think he was trying to set us up to say it's going to be a significant level of inconsistency while we go through this lengthy process of unwinding the most painful parts of our PSR problem, our financial problem, and getting back to profitability so we can kind of spend in a sensible way on both finished product and development players. And we're going to be over-indexing on development players. And that's going to produce inconsistency, both in the players and the team. And we're just going to have to live with that. All right, off the pitch. Almost as juicy as on it, isn't it? Like going completely different directions in financial terms. These clubs. United have, I think in theory they posted record revenues last year. Doesn't really mean anything. Their profitability was zero, less than zero, negative. They post really high EBITDA figures on the finance show. Talked about that with Jamie, exactly what that does and doesn't mean. United's problem is like football spending has been terrible and the business model off the pitch does not stack up anymore because they're not driving those revenues from broadcast in the same way they were. They haven't been able to put ticket prices up. They are now doing that. You've seen the reaction. No one likes ticket prices going up, and sponsorships have flatlined for 6-7 years now. And partly difficult sponsorship environment, macro environment, and all of that. But also, who wants to sponsor a losing team, even if you have loads of reach? So there's that problem. City, on the other hand, just keep posting record revenues. They will do so again this year. They will be hit a bit by having a crap Champions League, but they're going to be at the Club World Cup. That'll fall into next season's revenue, but that's going to provide them just a stupendous amount of money, a Champions League winning season's worth of money basically, for competing in that pointless tournament. So that's some interesting context. And then, of course, we've got all the charges, the hundreds and hundreds of them against City, which, like, the word on the street is starting to say the verdict is coming real soon.
Yeah, that's certainly I would guess you'd call it the smoke signals we're starting to get. I would say that Matt Lawton's PR puff piece he posted on behalf of the people that he serves certainly indicated that we're heading in that direction. It just looks like they're trying to attack from all angles legally. That, to me, does not indicate a club that anticipates a good outcome in the verdict. Otherwise, you don't need to attack clubs like, I know Arsenal were the headline in that piece, but they included Leicester and Everton and Southampton and Forest, which is kind of funny to me because what threat have they posed to City? This is a club just desperate to just attack. The thing that's always funny to me, I was saying to someone else, is that this could all have been shut down if they just produced that irrefutable evidence. Just show us what it is. We've heard about it for years now, but we've never even been briefed what it could be, which I find really interesting. It's like it doesn't exist. Just like the sponsorship money that was disguised equity funding. It's all there. Like there's a presentation that the City board presented that is publicly accessible that shows how they plan to disguise their revenue. There are emails that do that. It doesn't matter how they are obtained. They're now public record.
It doesn't matter at all. Yeah.
And they're included. They're included in the case. And Rui Pinto, for whatever you think of his reputation, tarnished and everything, he said that they're working with the Premier League. So we don't know if there's more information provided from that we haven't even seen yet. So I think if you're hoping for justice, you should be pretty optimistic right now. That's how I felt for a long time. I know you've probably felt the same, but it indicates to me that it's heading in the right direction. And hopefully it would have been great to get a derby win and the charges leveled at the same time. Can't always get what you want, but in the same month, it'd be really nice. It's my birthday in a few weeks, an early birthday present. Wouldn't be unhappy about it.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Look, prima facie, they are guilty as fuck, right? We've all read it. We've seen what was in the Spiegel article from a few years back. Rui Pinto's, the stuff that went into those pieces on it. We've read the presentations and the emails. Like, in the court of public opinion, they are guilty because they are guilty because they did these things. Now, they didn't even really argue when they went to UEFA. They tried to argue it was hacked and therefore it was illegal. UEFA made the mistake of not asking for additional documents. The Premier League have not made that mistake. Like, UEFA went off 6 emails and then basically caved because they just didn't, like, they time barred themselves out of it and then they caved, and there are no longer punishments except for financial punishments in UEFA regulations now because they didn't have the money. City have unlimited money for lawyers. As we see, they hide it in the City Football Group account.
They've said that they'd fight it with every, I think it was MBZ who said it himself.
Yeah. Rather spend $50 million on the world's 50 best lawyers than give 1 inch. And that's exactly what they've done. So prima facie, they're guilty. They're also going to be found guilty of not cooperating. As far as, like, we all understand.
That's the obvious. That's the obvious,
yeah.
Right? So the 30, I think it's about 35 of the charges. It's just whether I think it's about the 54 charges on the equity funding and the fake sponsorships. Those are the most brutal ones. And the things that they couldn't get in trouble for at CAS, they can get in trouble for now. The time bar, none of that applies here.
Doesn't apply. Also, hacked information doesn't matter. It's English law, right? It's fine. This is information. They're going to have to deny that it's real, which they're clearly not going to
They're
do.
out of context, remember, with those 6 emails. They argued last time that with only those emails, because UEFA didn't ask for more, that those emails were out of context and therefore couldn't paint a full picture. And that CAS outlined in their verdict that UEFA couldn't demonstratively prove that otherwise, though it appeared that way. So if you read the verdict, that's exactly what it says. I think all we get now is when the City fans send you that one screenshot of the one page where they've highlighted, I think it's not guilty, if I can remember, it's highlighted in yellow, but it's very clear they've read the verdict, I'm sure.
So what does it mean? We think, again, no particular information other than smart minds on the internet talking about that. We're going to get this in 2 stages, right? One is going to be a guilty, not guilty verdict on each of the charges. Some will be guilty, some won't be, or unproven, or whatever it's going to be. And then at some point later after that, we'll get a sentencing, at which point there'll be an appeal. Now, after that bit, I have no clue what's going to happen. So imagine, let's just hypothesize. They're found guilty on a whole bunch of the material stuff, so around disguised equity funding, around the impact on FFP as a result of that, and on non-cooperation. Found guilty on a whole bunch. Maybe they're innocent on some others, and that'll be what Lawton and a bunch of their mates write in the headlines that they've won.
Yeah, they've beaten these charges. Just these ones.
Just the 3, yeah. And there's a punishment, which is some form of points deduction per guilty verdict within the framework of the Premier League rules and what it allows. And it allows pretty substantial penalties that the committee or the commission in this case will be able to levy. And it's enough to relegate them this season and strip them of a bunch of titles in the past, and so on and so on and so on. And the open bus top parade that Manchester United fans will be holding to celebrate City's relegation will happen, and all of that.
I've got something prepared for social media when it goes down. Yeah, I've got something prepared.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. So let's imagine all that happens. Then they appeal. What then? Right? Because I think there's a couple of dimensions of the kind of macro discussion that have happened. I think I mentioned this on the weekend pod. So one is, it's really bad for English football if their champion, this last year's champion, one of their premier clubs, gets kicked out of the tournament for historical stuff. It looks really bad for the last 10 years of corrupt club winning stuff. This is a crisis for English football. And the other kind of flip side of that is it's a crisis if you don't punish that, right? So it's not good for the Premier League. But we're going to be in this limbo where City are going to take it to every court or commission or appeal route they possibly can, including the civil courts, right? As they have right throughout this process, in order to challenge every single bit. The legitimacy of the Premier League, legitimacy of the commission, legitimacy of the punishment regime and the verdict and so on. So where are we then? We have a guilty club, presumably with years worth of appeals left.
I think the only thing that should matter in the immediate term for anyone is the verdict. Because the immediate verdict, and it'll be in hundreds of pages. So something I wanted to mention as well is journalists, I think the club gets the verdict 2 weeks before the public does. So in those 2 weeks, they'll do their briefing and journalists will write favourable stories. Yeah. And what we'll get in that to me is those will be the last of those smoke signals before we know the verdict's definitively coming. But the verdict will be written apparently it's being written right now if it's not finished already. So it'll be in hundreds of pages. So when it's first released, it's going to take, days to actually absorb what the verdict means. I know that the need for immediate reaction stuff will be important. We'll make our jokes. I know I will. But it also, there'll be a lot of context to wade through to understand the findings and the context of the findings, what they've actually been found guilty of, but that is the most important part to me. I don't care. Like, I'm not sure how you feel. I don't care about awarding titles or anything like that because it's all done and dusted. It doesn't mean we got to celebrate at the time for the seasons where United finished second. It means nothing to me. But I don't care if the titles are stripped because to me they've been covered in asterisks for years anyway.
Yeah.
I think the court of public opinion is already quite against them. I'm curious because I've always had the long-held belief, and you're the same, that they're a sports washing plaything. It depends to me, the extent of the appeals really depends to me how it reflects on Abu Dhabi, how the verdict and the context of the verdicts reflect on Abu Dhabi and MBZ himself, and then what a civil case would look like for the UAE to wade into. I think that will have an effect on how City or the UAE, however you want to look at it, carry out their business.
Yeah.
I think there'll be some form of appeal, but I think obviously because the Premier League is a breakaway competition from the Football League, they can't just send them to the National League or anything like that. So we've joked about it, but obviously it's not going to happen. The weight of the punishment, I would imagine, will be heavy enough to immediately relegate them. But that limbo that you talk about, that's something none of us can pretend to know about because we don't know how far they'll take it. There's always, I think there'll be some sort of appeal, but you can't, it's hard, right? Because you would have to be very confident that they wouldn't be able to sue if the immediate penalty is going to be handed down. So next year they're not in the Champions League because they're in the Championship. And are the financial penalties heavy enough that they won't be able to pass PSR to get immediately back into Europe? There's things like that.
Yeah. I mean, they took every part of this process to the High Court in England because there isn't really a discovery process in the same way that you get in US courts, right? So I wonder whether they'd have done the same thing if all the documents were laid all out there, right? I don't know whether that would have been the same at all. I'm not a lawyer speculating, but it is very closed. There's not, you can have press in there, but there's no cameras. Like it's a very closed environment for them to make those challenges, which is why all throughout this process, we've only got certain amounts of information coming out of that. Yeah. So I don't know whether there's a kind of, I mean, given it is a PR exercise, it's not an investment exercise. Like it doesn't matter how much you dress it up. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of a tiny fraction of the UAE economy or the sovereign wealth fund, right? It's not about making money. Like, so the calculation would be, is there more embarrassment to come? Is it worth it? Right. And at that point,
that's exactly how I perceive it.
They sell off to Silver Lake for pennies on the dollar or whatever, one of their other investors, and just get rid, and City go back to they'll start again from being a mid-ranked side that don't have the advantage of all this stuff, and they'll go back to where they should be, right? And I think that'd be a perfectly good, I mean, what I would like, and unfortunately we're not going to get because the UK government, both the Labour Party and prior to that, the Conservative Party have indicated this, is that in the football governance bill, they will say no state ownership or quasi-state ownership, no related parties could be a state, because that is too skewing of the market, right? It distorts the market too much for this to be fair competition, and you get non-private market incentives coming into the game, and it's just dangerous for the game overall. Unfortunately, they didn't do that. In fact, they did the opposite and created a carve-out, which is a real shame. Maybe they will self-immolate the UAEs and go, no, we don't want this anymore.
They're not owned by the UAE, didn't you hear? That's what the City fans tell us.
Of course. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah. Private owner Sheikh Mansour, who just happens to own 100% the holding company, and the holding company just happens to be owned 100% by the Sovereign Wealth Fund, and the Sovereign Wealth Fund just happens to own 70% of their primary sponsor, who didn't pay the money. So, I mean, I don't know, an amazing series of coincidences for a company that's not state-owned.
Now, Ed, if Sheikh Jassim comes back and buys Manchester United, will you be doing paid promo to travel to Qatar, like those Newcastle content creators did this week? I think it's Thogden, I think his name. I don't know. And Adam Pearson. They were doing those. They were so cringeworthy, those setups. It was
so bad. Hey, look, I find it bad enough doing adverts.
Yeah, the real party, when United are back, the real party will be in Qatar. That's what we'll be saying.
I mean, I've been to Doha for very different circumstances, but I don't think I could do that. I had to do quite a lot of reads to do some host-read ads. Very sorry, everyone, for flooding you with adverts. I've just decided after 15 years doing this for free, should make some fucking money and share that out with other co-hosts and stuff like that. So I'm slowly moving to that scenario. But yeah, funny enough, just as an aside, since I brought that up, I had a whole bunch of people complaining. I was like, normally I'm like, yeah, like no one likes to listen to adverts, but specifically, I don't like this advert or I don't like this advert or you shouldn't do a promo for that one. I'm like, it's not like I'm doing a boondoggle for a state that has a human rights record problem. I'm just flogging some VPNs or whatever.
We're not flooding it with like Bet365 handicaps. It's not becoming a betting podcast. There's ways you can still go about it. That's just the reality of it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Don't gamble, folks. It's extremely damaging to your health.
Well, what was the percentage you said to me when we talked about it a few weeks ago? The percentage, the top 6%?
Yeah, top 6% provide 90% of the industry profits. Yeah.
That hurt my feelings as a likely 6% once upon a time. Anyway, can I ask you, go back about the city stuff? How have you always felt about the historical stuff? It taints half of the last decade and a half of football. It taints the whole lot. So do you care about the stripping of titles? Do you care about how that's perceived in the history books? Or is it just like, is the asterisk enough?
Like in the Olympics where you get a drugs cheat, you pass it on to the silver medalist. And the theory there is that the drugs cheat couldn't have got the time they'd gotten without taking the drugs, and therefore they wouldn't have won the title anyway, and so you should pass it to the next best person. And it sort of works. You know, what you do, you've robbed that person of celebrating in the stadium with their friends and their family and having the flag and listening to the anthem and all of that kind of stuff. And thinking in a football context, should United get another title from when we were second in 2018 or whenever it was? It means nothing to me.
I just think it should be crossed out.
Yeah, it should just be vacated, I think.
Yep.
So forevermore, Manchester City's name will not be there, but they'll know.
But they live in disgrace. I love it.
What it won't ever do is take away the moment from the City fans, which is unfortunate. You can't do that, right? You can't wind back the clock.
Yeah, I've heard that a few times from them.
And 93-20 doesn't happen because you're like, well, you cheated in that season, so we're going to take that moment of joy away. You can't take it away. They'll always have that. And they will have to answer as to whether they think that they cheated to get there and whether it means anything to them or not.
The knowledge is enough, I think, like the way I perceive it, metaphorically or whatever you want to call it in the history books, is just a big black marker through it. No one else needs the title. We didn't, it's like you said, we didn't get to share those moments. It doesn't mean anything. They have to live with that disgrace. I think that's the most important part. And that's why the two sides of the Premier League argument, they have to show they have teeth. And that there is genuine regulation of the rules. Yeah. It was interesting to see that we finally got some candidates for the regulator role as well this week.
Did you apply?
No, I think someone with a hand up their arse will be running that role. But yeah, it's funny timing considering what's happening with Barcelona right now, and it's funny how their rules work and getting to that €1 billion revenue mark. And it's also interesting how quiet Real Madrid have been, because it's in their best interest that Barcelona don't get punished, in my opinion.
Yeah, they need competition.
They need that football pyramid. For Liga to stay number 2, they need the pyramid to stay the way it is.
Absolutely. Look at what has happened in France, where you only get one team, basically. Except for extraordinary seasons, Paris Saint-Germain will win the title from here until the end of time, because no one else can compete with that. And their TV contract, it is non-existent, because who wants to watch a sporting competition when there's no peril? And that's what will happen to La Liga if Barcelona punish too severely.
When I think about that, I think about the incentives to punish City because of the parity that exists in the Premier League. If you want to promote the Premier League as the best in the world, it's not necessarily about the elite clubs. It's that anyone can do it. Because of the money available, you can build yourself up into something real. All of a sudden, you can become Aston Villa and be in the last 8 of the Champions League. You can become Forest and be third.
Yeah.
That's the advertisement for it.
Yeah, and the extension of that is that the league as a whole will not be weaker for the lack of Manchester City.
They'll be better.
They didn't exist before. They won't exist again. I mean, they did exist.
Leicester won the most miraculous title amidst all their cheating and all their success.
Yeah.
Admittedly, it's a transition season, much like this one. Doesn't take away what it meant to the Leicester supporters. So I think you've got a heavy argument in favour of what it can provide for others. And also, alternatively, what their cheating and success has done to clubs who have been relegated as a consequence of their existence, managers, players whose careers have been affected. Not that like you're going to have all these legal suits and stuff. It will be interesting to see also the other fallout aspect is clubs taking action against City and financially it could just cripple them from a revenue standpoint to have to pay compensation to other clubs because there's going to be the majority of clubs. I imagine it would have to be a certain amount of them. There will be clubs who are incentivized not to go for compensation because of their own situations and their own ownership who are in bed with City. But, City attacked Everton and they were supposed to be part of the blue cartel together. So who knows?
Well, yes. I mean, there will be other clubs that go after them for compensation, as Sheffield United and West Ham came to an agreement all those years ago around Carlos Tevez. That impact that had. So that was about £20 million, we think. Not disclosed, but that has been the reporting. Obviously, so many years later, the value of that alone, if you just inflate it by the TV
not a small amount today.
Well over 100 million, right? And times that by the number of clubs that feel aggrieved by City's cheating, then you could come to a really big number. I mean, City, of course, if Abu Dhabi stays around, I think it's fair enough to say would fight that tooth and nail through the courts forever. So there'd be that. All right. That is some wonderful context ahead of the derby on Sunday. Come on, United, for fuck's sake. Give us a performance and give us a result.
What do you think? What's your feeling?
I'm not feeling that confident, mainly around our inability to create good chances and finish them. If we had a bunch of speed merchants, as we've had in the past, with a bunch of people who want to make those late runs into the box, like the kinds of players that we know hurt City at this particular moment, I'd feel a lot more confident. I'm not sure we do have that. But there you go. So not super confident.
Get through it with no injuries, do not lose going into Lyon. We need that momentum. The side is such a confidence, momentum-based side at the moment, the squad, with how brittle they are, maybe mentally. And there's an issue with Matthias de Ligt as well that's a little bit worrying that Ruben Amorim spoke about overnight. I'm a little concerned, but I'll never say that we're going to lose a derby. So bring it on. Bruno to have a big
All right. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you, listeners, viewers, wherever you are. Leave a comment. Leave a review on whatever platform you're on. It does help our distribution. Thanks a lot. Bye now.